What's up guys, welcome to the Chess Giant. This is Solomon Riddell, and in today's video I'm going to be showing y'all one of the best chess openings for black against the move e4 with the French defense, and specifically how to fight against the exchange variation, in which we now see the moves d4 and following d5, white capture that pawn. This is the move and the variation that we're going to be covering in today's video, and against this we're simply going to take back with our e-pawn. And I'm not going to lie to you guys, this is one of the most drawish variations in the game of chess. If white does take on d5, they are probably trying to play for a draw. Most of the time, white is going to play moves like knight f3, bishop d3, castle kingside, and honestly, white really doesn't have any advantage at all in that variation. But let's first cover what happens if the move c4 is played, trying to create some kind of imbalance in this position. But even against the move c4, I really like black's game, as we can now play bishop b4 with check, attacking the king on e1. Idea being, if a move like knight c3, we can simply develop with a move like knight f6. And now against a move like knight f3, we could take the pawn on c4, but the bishop could take back right away, and our king and rook would still be on e8 and h8. What on earth am I talking about? How do our king and rook have anything to do with the pawn on c4 and the bishop on f1? Well, again, we could take here and allow the bishop to come right away, or we can castle kingside and allow the bishop to move first and then take the pawn on c4. Now you guys can tell the difference. Our king isn't on e8 and the rook isn't on h8. We are now castled. So basically what we did is develop our pieces, allow the bishop to move first, and then take the pawn on c4. By doing this, we just gained a tempo. Now following bishop takes c4, we can play bishop g4, now pinning both the knight on f3 to the queen and the knight on c3 to the king on e1. And actually in this position we do have some bishop takes f3 followed by queen takes d4 idea. So you're probably going to see a move like bishop e3 trying to hold on to that isolated pawn. But against this, we can now play c5, putting pressure right in the center of the board. Idea being, if white takes the pawn on c5, we can play knight bd7 and then capture that pawn back with our dark squared bishop really whenever we'd like to. And if the move d5 is played, I'm not going to lie, this is a very tempting move. It seems very strong. It's not protected by one or two, but three pieces all supporting this passed pawn. Why on earth would black ever allow a passed pawn on d5 at move 10 in the game? Well, it actually turns out because of our pins on c3 and f3 on top of our current pressure on that pawn on d5, this actually turns out to be a huge mistake. Here we can play knight bd7, and the whole idea here is that after a move like castling kingside, we could play a move like knight b6, attacking both the bishop and the pawn on d5. But here I personally really prefer the move knight e5, both attacking this bishop and also threatening to take that knight on f3, in which case white would have to take back with the g-pawn, giving them double isolated and isolated pawns right in front of the king. White does not want to allow this. So the best move here by far is bishop e2, but against this, we simply take the knight on c3 because it was defending that pawn on d5. Following b takes c3, we win a pawn, and in this position, black is really up a pawn. White doesn't have much of anything to show for it. In fact, I think black is ahead in coordination and activity of the pieces. This is almost a clearly won game for black. So that covers the move c4, in which we play bishop b4 check, attacking the king, play knight f6, castle kingside, continue to develop our pieces, allow the light squared bishop to move first before taking the pawn on c4, continue to develop, and we're just playing chess. Now what happens if white plays a move like knight f3? This is honestly one of the most drawish variations in the game of chess. I'm going to be showing you guys what Gotham chess plays against this variation, which gives black a chance to fight for the win. But let me first show you guys how we can simply copy white. I mean, we could play a move like knight f6, and after bishop d3, play bishop d6, castle castle, bishop g5, bishop g4, knight bd2, knight bd7, c3, and with this move c6 at the master and grandmaster level, we now see a 94% draw rate. Okay, so if you want to reach this position and you want to fight for the win, by all means go ahead. It's definitely possible to win this game as black, but at the master and grandmaster level, a 94% draw rate is pretty severe. That's a lot of draws. If you are trying to be as safe as possible, there's literally nothing wrong with playing that line. I'm just letting you guys know that it's very hard to win and honestly kind of hard to lose unless you severely blunder. Let me show you guys how to fight for the win here. This is what Gotham Chess plays, and I personally really enjoy this setup. Here we're going to play bishop d6, and after the move bishop d3, play knight e7. Why on earth would we ever play such a weird move like knight e7? Well, here we're actually wanting to castle queenside, and by playing knight e7, we are shielding a possible rook e1 check against our king. Following the move castling kingside, we can now play knight bc6, attacking that centralized pawn. And now, after a move like c3, really trying to fortify the pawn structure, we can play bishop g4, pinning that knight on f3 to the queen on d1. And really, no matter what white plays, the very next move, we're going to play queen d7. And now, if a move like knight bd2, the key move here, castle queenside, creating a huge imbalance in this position. The white king is on the opposite side of our king on c8, and I really do find this position to be a ton of fun with the black pieces. I really think that white's only option here is to attack us with a move like b4, in which case we are now going to attack white with knight g6, wanting to launch that knight soon into f4, attacking both the bishop on d3 and putting a little bit of pressure towards the king side of the board. Here, if a move like b5, we can actually now play knight a5. Idea being, if a move like queen a4 attacking the knight, we can simply play b6. And this is honestly a position in which white can get in trouble pretty quick because of the activity of our pieces. I mean, let's say white here plays a move like h3. There's literally nothing wrong with this move, but now we have some pretty fun attacking chances. We can play knight f4, attacking the bishop on d3 and the pawn on h3 as well as the pawn on g2, or we can take on h3. This is probably my personal preference against this. White will, probably take that bishop, in which case we take the pawn. We just got 2 pawns back for the piece, but in return, this king is very vulnerable to attack with a very strong queen on d1, a bishop on d6 piercing down on that h2 square, and a knight that is ready to jump into f4. When I plugged this into the computer, it only gave one move that gave white the edge, and that's with knight f1. Against this, we can now play f6. The reason we play f6 is to stop any knight g5 attacking our queen and attacking our pawn on f7 ideas. We do not want to allow knight f5, so we play the move f6, and surprisingly, according to the computer, white's best move is knight g3. I think the reason for this is that it's simply impossible to get rid of this queen, and it's definitely impossible to get rid of this bishop on d6, not to mention that our knight is going to be jumping into c4 anytime soon. I think that knight g3 is probably considered to be the best move by the computer because first off, it shields the position of the king, and on top of that, yes, white does lose a pawn, but in return, they get our very active bishop on d6 as we take that knight, and following f takes g3, we take back with check. We now have 3 pawns for the piece. I personally really like black's position here following a move like king h1. We can play rook e8, really trying to fight for that central file. And on top of that, our knight on g6 is very active, ready to jump into h4 or f4 on a moment's notice. Not to mention our queen on g3 is still a very active and strong piece. And if white is ever like, wait a second, I don't want to allow this knight to jump into f4 or h4 at any point in this game, they may want to take the knight on g6, but now we have h takes g6, and the rook that literally hasn't moved the whole game is now about to deliver checkmate. If you'd like to learn more on the theory behind the French defense as a whole, click the video to the left. If you'd like to learn more about the hippopotamus defense, a very fun, strong, and active defense with the black pieces, click the video to the right. Leave a comment below to let me know what other videos you'd like to see covered on this channel. And as always, I appreciate you guys. Thanks for watching. Peace.